back to Liz and Sandro's Marketing Podcast. We're the podcast that helps your small business grow through discussions and ideas on social media, SEO, reputation management, web design, and so much more. Today, Liz is going to go over some basic keyword questions.
Yes, we're taking it back to basics for this episode. We've had a lot of requests for some basic marketing content, and that's what we've got for you today. So I had a check-in call with a client this week for a website project that we are in the midst of. We had some initial data from Moz in terms of keywords, and we were starting to sift through the data, the search volume, the difficulty, and determine which words are ultimately going to be worth our effort to attempt to rank for, and then assign those to a specific page within the site map that we had mapped out. So the client had a couple great basic questions that I thought were worth chatting about today. So how do we choose one keyword or key phrase over another? And there really isn't an exact science to this. It's all about, again, sifting through the phrases, through that data, and understanding what phrases are generating search volume, while at the same time evaluating the difficulty that it might take to rank for a key phrase. So in terms of search volume, again, we use Moz as our keyword tool. For those of you familiar with that, you know that you're going to get a range. You might see, 0 to 10 searches per month, 100 to 250, upwards, depending on, again, how much search volume it actually gets. We pay attention to that because we don't want to go after keywords and phrases that don't get any search volume. That's theoretically not going to be worth our effort. We also want to pay attention to the difficulty of these keywords. Moz uses a scale of, I think it's 0 to 100 or 1 to 100, obviously 100 being the most difficult. So the lower the difficulty, the easier it's going to be to rank for. We also have to keep in mind the site that we are initially building or potentially relaunching. If it's a site that has some great credibility, we could go after words with slightly higher difficulty. But if it's a new site, and in this case, the client, I think they've only been in business for about a year. They have a starter site. Now this is the site that they're really investing in that's going to help them grow. It's a relatively new site. So we need to be mindful of the fact that going after something with a difficulty of 60, 70, 80, probably not realistic for this particular site. We're going to keep that in mind as we start to assign the keywords and phrases to a specific page so we can start writing the content. The other thing to keep in mind, or that we keep in mind when we're going to be picking phrases to write content, is, what's the purpose of the page? And where's the potential client going to be in the sales cycle? I just think that's really important. Sandra and I were chatting more from an AdWords perspective, of phrases that are very broad. Broad keywords can be great from an organic perspective and a pay-per-click perspective. They can be less expensive, but they need more education. So they're not quite as far along in the sales cycle. Whereas the more focused keywords are going to be, again, from a pay-per-click perspective, a little bit more expensive, but not as much education. The individual is probably much further along in the sales cycle. So again, things to keep in mind as you're working through keywords and figuring out what you want to rank and optimize for. The second question that we got was another great one. The question was if we could or should include competitor keywords or phrases on the site we are building. So this is what we call branded keywords that include a brand or a company term in them. I cautioned the client that we don't necessarily want to include competitor keywords on our site. However, the approach that we might take once the site is launched is using Google AdWords, or it's now called Google Ads, but using that platform as a way to, one, get a sense of how much traffic is really being driven by competitor keywords, and also gauge interest from those individuals, if they're interested in alternative options. Now, obviously, you can build an entire test campaign around this idea of capturing traffic from your competitors' branded keywords. I won't get into the specifics today, but it's definitely worth exploring. So yeah, again, two really great keyword questions, basic keyword questions from my client in the past week, and I thought I'd share them with you on the podcast today.
I love that, Liz. And actually, I'm going to give a quick shout out to what is quickly becoming my favorite tool, Ahrefs. Ahrefs also gives you keyword difficulty scores, but it tells you where you're ranking for them right now. So you can see, you can actually search for, I am 5th through 10th for these keywords. And you can look at those keywords and maybe write some content, some blog posts to see if you might rank higher for them.
I love it. And yes, I know Sandro and I are both carefully following, what Moz is starting to do from a links perspective and what Ahrefs is doing from a keyword perspective. If you've been a listener of the podcast for a while, you know that we did a comparison of the two tools, and they each kind of excel in their own spaces, but they are trying to each on their own step it up in different areas. So it'll be interesting to see what features are available to us over the next coming months. So
Moz is really kicking up their links game. They're still in beta though, so maybe we'll have to take another look in the near future.
Definitely. So yes, as we come across more of the basic SEO questions, we will definitely be chatting about them here, because I know we have a lot of listeners that sometimes it's helpful to go back to the basics.
You're right. And if you have any SEO questions, any basic ones, please send them our way. We'd love to hear them. And we'll give you a shout out and a link back to your site. And of course, we'll answer your question. Thanks again for joining us. If you like what you heard, we'd love a review. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We have a new Facebook page. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you next time.